Afternoon, everybody. It's Nate again from Freedom Pharmacy, and we're doing our episode 2 in our 9-part series about Freedom Pharmacy. We do these every Wednesday, just a little bit after noon. And last week we talked about compounding and what Freedom Pharmacy does with compounding. If you haven't had a chance to see that video, it's posted on our Facebook page, and I encourage you to take a look at that. Today's topic is going to be about self-pay pharmacy. So when we built Freedom Pharmacy, we really built it for 2 reasons. Number 1 was the compounding. We had to have more space and build laboratories that we talked about last week. And number 2 was we wanted to be a self-pay pharmacy only. And what that means is we do not take third-party payments or insurance payments from anyone. So a lot of people are really interested in knowing how that can benefit consumers and how that benefits us, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So to understand why a self-pay pharmacy saves people money, we need to go back through the history a little bit of the pharmacy benefits managers who run the operations of prescription processing for insurance companies. Pharmacy benefits managers were originally this is back in the 80s, the 1980s, were just kind of computer go-betweens from the providers, which is the pharmacies, and the ultimate payers, who were employers or government entities. So what the pharmacy benefits managers did at that time was they basically just streamlined the claims process. The internet was relatively new, so there weren't a lot of companies that could handle claims processing of that magnitude at that time. So that's how they all started, just to basically get rid of the paperwork between the pharmacy and the employer and the patient. So in that regard, PBMs played a very important function. They made that process much more streamlined, much less paper. So essentially, the pharmacy was able to put information into a computer, send that claim electronically to the PBM. The PBM then would have all the information about that plan loaded in, and then send a claim back to the pharmacy to let them know, okay, this is what the patient would pay, and this is how much the employer is going to pay. That process actually still happens today, probably at a much faster rate than it used to back in those days. That was all dial-up internet and all that kind of stuff. So, but that process still happens. Now, in the 1990s, as things begin to evolve, something very important happened. And that was drug prices started to increase exponentially. Now, why would that be? Well, the reason is because the patient was no longer paying for their prescription. Somebody else was paying for it. So it became a very common that the patient had absolutely no idea what the cost of the medication was. It was just kind of all hidden behind the scenes, and pharmacies and drug manufacturers began to increase prices. They were profiteering, really, inside of a market where they knew that the person in front of them could not call them out for a specific price. So there was a lack of accountability on the providers. And, being part of this profession at this point in time, I take, my profession takes full responsibility for that. I am not happy to say that is true, that pharmacies and manufacturers were profiteering, basically jumping on that weakness in the market where there was no accountability on how much they were charging. So at that point in time, pharmacies were growing exponentially. You started to see major chain pharmacies building on every corner that could possibly be built. Grocery stores began to put pharmacies in every single grocery store. You saw an explosion of pharmacies because they were very profitable. But the side effect that caused was a huge inflation in the cost of drugs. So the PBMs went to the insurers and said, we think we have a solution for you. We think we can begin to control costs by creating maximum amounts of money that we pay for specific drugs. So PBMs were really necessary in the 1990s to get that inflation under control. They did all kinds of contracting with manufacturers, contracting with pharmacies. They did a really good job of getting those costs under control and starting to make prices reasonable for the employers. So in that respect, we have to give credit to those pharmacy benefits managers back in the 90s, and even in the early 2000s. They were able to get costs under control, and they were very beneficial at that time. Now, what's happened over the last 10 or 15 years, unfortunately, is the PBMs are, you have to understand, they're for-profit companies as well. So, their business model has to change. They need to show their shareholders more and more profits every year. So what happened was there was huge consolidation in the PBM market. Where there used to be hundreds of different PBMs that were managing claims for hundreds of different insurance companies, now there are only really 4 major PBMs that control 85% of the market. So what that means is there's no real check and balance on that PBM market, just like there was no check and balance on the pharmacy market back in the 80s and 90s when there was huge inflation. There's now no check and balance on the PBM market. So what has happened is they have started to charge pharmacies fees. They have started to charge employers and government entities fees. And these fees year on year on year on year just keep going up and up and up and up. Some of the words you may have heard are DIR fees. That's a really big topic right now. There are administrative fees for every prescription that gets processed through a pharmacy. Your employer or your government agency that has your insurance gets charged an administrative fee. And this fee is not small. It is anywhere from around $3 or $4 all the way up to $14 per prescription. So that end payer already, before anything happens, is already paying more for the product than is necessary. On the pharmacy side of things, we get transaction fees. We get effective rate recalculations. I could name 10 things that happen that take money from us that we get paid, that we then have to pass on to the PBMs. This video is too short to go through everything, so suffice it to say that over time, fees have continued to go up. So we've got fees on both the ultimate payer side, and we've got fees on the pharmacy side, all of it funneling into the pharmacy benefits manager, and most of it not getting back to the ultimate payer. So with all that inefficiency and expense, that is why we came up with Freedom Pharmacy concept of self-pay pharmacy. This eliminates all that nonsense and allows us to just deal directly with the consumer and takes all those fees out of our way. So ultimately, what's this mean for the consumer? Well, it means overall lower pricing. We have a transparent model where we price our drugs based on the cost of the drug plus a professional services fee. What we do here is incredibly important. And I want to make sure that what we get paid to do is what's important for us to do. And that is doing the review of your prescription, checking for interactions, checking for the appropriateness of doses, making sure everything is correct about that prescription. We are your last best hope to prevent some sort of problem with a prescription drug. These things are prescriptions because they are dangerous. And what we do is super important. So we should feel, in my opinion, our profession needs to feel like that is what we should be paid for. But unfortunately, what's been happening is we've been trying to rely on buying product low and selling it for a higher price. That's called margin. It's just like a retail concept. We have thrown that out the window at Freedom Pharmacy. We're not trying to make profits off of that. What we've told our suppliers is that's your job to keep us competitive, because if you guys try to get greedy and increase our prices, that's just something we pass on to the consumer. We are only getting paid for the services that we provide, whether that be filling prescriptions or compounding prescriptions or consultations. Because when your incentives are aligned with what's important, then what's important is what gets focused on. So we're not back here focused on trying to wheel and deal on these products and trying to buy something super, super inexpensive and then passing it on to you at a much higher price. That is why these discount cards have become so popular, is because that's the model that they use. So now I can use a discount card. If I'm a big corporation, one of the big chain pharmacies, I can use that discount card to jack my prices as high as I want. $50 for a prescription that you can get at Freedom Pharmacy for $12, but I'll give you a discount card and that'll make it $15. So it's just like going into a sales place and they're telling you that they're giving you $4,000 off the manufacturer's suggested retail price. Well, everybody knows that's not what you pay. The same thing happens in the prescription world. Again, we want out of all that nonsense. All of that stuff needs to be gone. We can get rid of that noise and we can give better pricing and we can give better service. And I wanted to show you guys a couple examples of some very popular medications. I'm just going to grab lisinopril and Z-Pak and generic Prilosec. And I want to show you guys how our pricing model works. Very simple. So this is how we determine, this is where we get our pricing. It's all loaded into the computer. So this is the generic Prilosec, omeprazole 20 milligrams, 90 for a 90-day supply. Is $14.55. So very popular medication. If you called a pharmacy and asked them what their retail price is on this, most of them will probably say around $60. They are full well knowing that when they bill your insurance, it'll come back at a $5 or a $10 copay for a 30-day supply. So the price isn't real. You can bring them a discount card and probably get it down to around $14.55. Again, we're eliminating all that nonsense. There's no reason for it. Next one we're going to look at is a Z-Pak. This is a very common antibiotic, and it's prescribed a lot for pneumonia. It can be prescribed for sinus infection, lots of things. Z-Paks are prescribed all the time. $11.20. Again, and we can do it in two or 5 minutes. We can have this done. If you take this to a traditional pharmacy, you know, you're going to be fumbling around for all these cards. You're going to be, you know, arguing with the technician. Well, this is the right card. No, this is the... Forget it. It's not necessary. We don't need all that inefficiency. Just come to us, in and out, great counseling with your prescription. You know, we get paid based on our service, not based on the markup. And the last one we're going to look at is lisinopril, 20 milligram, very common blood pressure medication. $14.65 for a 90-day supply. So 90 pills for a 90-day supply. The cost on that, incidentally, is $2.42. That's how much 90 of these cost us, which is, to me, is just amazing. Like, how can this life-saving medicine be so inexpensive? But it is. And we have, you know, hundreds of products that are like that. And we want to pass those savings on to you, the consumer. We don't think we should make a ton of money off of buying low and selling high. We feel like we should only make money off of our services. So, in a nutshell, that's why we do self-pay pharmacy. I could talk on this topic for hours. I have talked on this topic for hours with people. Stop by if you want to learn more, and bring your med list and let us see what we can do for you. I hope you learned some things about retail pharmacy. We call it community pharmacy because that's a better word. We're not retailing you. We are simply cost of drug plus professional service, and that's your fee. So thanks for tuning in today. Next week, we're going to talk about the synergies between Freedom Pharmacy and Pickerington Pharmacy, which will be a very interesting topic. Why are we doing side-by-side self-pay and insurance? So you won't want to miss next week. So tune in next week a little bit after noon on Wednesday, February the 3rd, I think it is. And we'll see you then. Thanks again, guys. Have a great day.